Let's try another example of a transformation. This time we'll use Villa Savoye. So I'm going to look at just these thick walls, the extra thick walls, and I think what I'll do is I will take them in each direction. So the first I'll do is will basically be extending out to infinity perpendicular to the walls until they hit another poche. I'll figure out what to do with the overlaps later, and then I'll do the vertical walls in a second generation. So that's what projecting the horizontal walls. Then I just have to come up with an idea for how to acknowledge these overlaps of 2. So because I don't have a lot of, I don't really want to lose that, because I want to hold on to as much information as possible, and I want to try to acknowledge that that overlaps of 2 are different from these, and they're different from the negative space. So I think what I'll do is I will, let's see, I'll come in a quadrant and I will make a figure, basic, oops, that's one there. And notice that this isn't right in the middle because I don't have much going on here, so it'll kind of create a little bit of a weighted thing. This one is just within a quadrant, so here I might have to cheat. Don't tell your professor that I told you to cheat. And one quadrant in. I've removed the areas where I had lines that don't belong there, and I went back on what I thought there, mostly because it's a more consistent rule to acknowledge the fact that there's only one quadrant by just saying, well, that goes away according to the rule, and also because I think it'll look better in the end. So now on to the vertical walls projecting perpendicular to infinity. I'll use the same rule here. One quadrant in from all corners, or all of the edges, to acknowledge this overlap of 2. It's important to hang on to little details like that little sliver in the closet, which is a result of this thick wall projecting past that thin wall just a little bit. Those little details are usually the things that will help make the overall diagrams kind of feel more believable. So now I can composite these two by laying one over the top of the other. And it's important here to get these nicely aligned. That's pretty good. And I think when I do the composite, I think I'll actually hardline that, at least the edges, to make sure that I get a nice crisp rendition, and then probably I'll be ready to do a final version if I like that. So it's easy to see the top diagram, but sometimes it's a little harder to see the one underneath. So I believe I picked up all of the, yeah, so what I'm gonna say for this is anytime the figures on each overlap, that's gonna turn white. So in order to remind myself of that, I'm going to shade the parts just a little bit, just so I remember what edges are going to be dark. So I know those are going to be black. So here's my hardline draft. I've removed the underlays, and I've given myself indications of what's going to be solid, and I've also removed some of the lines through erasure where I know I won't have edges, so I should be able to just knock this one out and fill it in and have a fairly finished diagram. Do a similar process to this to do your final on vellum, but let's see how this looks when it's inked. So here we are. My phone battery died, so I finished it offline, but you can see that I kind of rushed the poche on this because this is just the thing on trace, but what I was demonstrating before where I was basically hardlining all of the poche, that's going to give you the best, for your final version, that will give you the best shading and the most consistent shading. You can see where I kind of rushed it so I could upload this video tonight. You can see the grain there, but the ones that I did hardline are nice and crisp. So if I had done this on vellum, I might have hardlined the entire thing, and I probably also would have struck a construction line at the edges here so that I could make those nice and clean. But if this is kind of my draft final copy before I do on vellum, it's pretty good. Yeah, so there's another transformation, taking projections kind of in two different directions and then compositing them. The composite's fairly simple because you basically just take the figures, and wherever you have two figures on top of one another, they turn white. All right, good luck.